Chicago, City on the Make by Nelson Algren, published in 1951. Chapter 1, The Hustlers. To the east were the moving waters as far as eye could follow. To the west a sea of grass as far as wind might reach. Waters restlessly, with every motion, slipping out of used colors for new, so that each fresh wind off the lake washed the prairie grasses with used sea colors. The prairie moved in the light like a second-hand sea, till between the waters and the wind came the marked-down derelicts with the dollar signs for eyes, looking for any prairie portage at all that hadn't yet built a jail, beside any old second-hand sea. The portage's single hotel was a barracks. Its streets were pig wallows, and all the long summer night the Potawatomis mourned beside that river. Down in the barracks the horse dealers and horse stealers were making a night of it again. Whiskey and vermilion hustlers, painting the night vermilion. In the Indian grass the Indians listened. They too had lived by night, and heard, in the uproar in the hotel, the first sounds of a city that was to live by night after the wilderness had passed. A city that was to roll boulevards down out of pig wallows and roll its dark river uphill. That was to forge, out of steel and blood-red neon, its own peculiar wilderness. Yankee and voyager, the Irish and the Dutch, Indian traders and Indian agents, half-breed and quarter-breed and no breed at all, in the final counting they were all of a single breed. They all had hustler's blood, and kept the old Sauganash in a hustler's uproar. They hustled the land and they hustled the Indian, hustled by night and they hustled by day. They hustled guns and furs and peltries, grog and the blood-red whiskey dye. They hustled with dice or a deck or a derringer, and decided the Indians were wasting everyone's good hustler's time. And decided the Indians were wasting every good hustler's time. Slept till noon and scolded the Indians for being lazy. Paid the Potawatomis off in cash in the cool of the Indian evening, and had the cash back to the dime by the break of the Indian dawn. They do anything under the sun except work for a living, and we remember them reverently, with Balaban and Cats, under such subtitles as Founding Fathers, Dauntless Pioneers, or Far-Visioned Conquerors, meaning merely they were out to make a fast buck off whoever was standing nearest. They never conquered, as well as they hustled. Their arithmetic was sharper than their hunting knives. They skinned the redskin down to his final feather, the forests down to the ultimate leaf of autumn, the farmer out of his last wormy kernel of Indian corn, and passed the rain-swept seasons between cheerfully skinning one another. One such easy skinner listing his vocation lightly in the city's first directory as generous sport. Mountain grog seller and river gambler, generous sport and border jackal, blackleg braggart and coonskin roisterer, long knives from Kentucky and hatchetmen from New York, bondsmen, brokers, and bounty jumpers. Right from the go it was a broker's town, and the brokers run it yet. It's still the easiest joint in the country in which to jump bond, as well as for staying out of jail altogether, the price commonly being whatever you have in your wallet. If the wallet is empty, a 50-cent cigar will usually do it. Indeed, the city's very first jailbird got a pass from the city fathers. An antique stray named Harper was knocked down, under the local vagrancy laws, to George White, the Negro town crier, for a quarter, and legally led away by White at the end of a rusty chain. When anti-slavery feeling forced the Negro to let the white escape, George wanted only his 2 bits back, and couldn't collect a dime. So each night scandalized the darkness by crying his loss instead of the hour. He never got his 2 bits back, but he made $100 uproar over it, every hour on the hour, all night long. The joint is still in an uproar, every hour on the hour, all night long. When the do-gooders try to quiet it down, they only add drums to the tumult. The village squares arrived too late for a firm toehold. In 1835, they declared a season of prayer and wrested 2 outlaws right out of the devil's clutches. Yet the devil seemed not to miss the pair at all, so they tossed 2 harder customers into Pokey, and still nobody cared. Then they fined a brothel keeper 25 silver dollars, and the battle between the pure of heart and the broker's greed was joined for keeps. The ceaseless, city-wide, century-long guerrilla warfare between the do-as-I-sayers and the live-and-let-livers was on, with the brokers breaking in front. Broke in front and stayed in front, despite being crowded to the rail on occasion. Not that there's been any lack of honest men and women sweating out Jane Addams' hopes here, but they get only 2 outs to the inning while the hustlers are taking 4. When Big Bill Thompson put in the fix for Capone, he tied the town to the rackets for keeps, so that when the reform mayor who followed him attempted to enforce the prohibition laws, he wakened such warfare on the streets that the do-gooders themselves put Thompson back at the wheel, realizing that henceforward nobody but an outlaw could maintain a semblance of law and order on the common highway. Big Bill greeted his fellow citizens correctly then with a cheery, "Fellow hoodlums!" The best any mayor can do with the city since is just to keep it in repair. Yet the do-gooders still go doggedly forward, making the hustlers struggle for their gold week in and week out, year after year, once or twice a decade tossing an unholy fright into the boys. And since it's a ninth-inning town, the ballgame never being over till the last man is out, it remains Jane Addams' town as well as Big Bill's. The ballgame isn't over yet, but it's a rigged ballgame. Once upon a time, when 35th Street was the far south side and North Avenue was the limit on the north, something called the Law and Order League shut the Sunday beer halls, and the Beer on Sunday party won the subsequent elections in a walk. A horde of horrified Ohio spinsters thereupon, counterattacking the halls. A horde of horrified Ohio spinsters thereupon counterattacking the halls by praying at the bar rails, pleading with the drinkers to kneel beside them. There is no record of anyone getting sawdust in his cuffs. This was 1873, and thousands who had come to rebuild the ruins of the Great Fire were carrying ragged banners crying "Bread or Blood" on the streets. Sunday was the one day of the week the working stiff who was still working had to himself. So he just dipped his kisser deeper into his stein, wiped his mustache tidily, and ordered another. He knew he wasn't getting any 8-hour day by kneeling for it. Indignantly then, in their hundreds, the women marched to City Hall to demand legal prohibition of Sunday beer, and got turned down their cold. Working stiffs and out-of-work stiffs alike booing them gently back to Ohio. After times had picked up again, a Reverend Gypsy Smith, dressed like midnight itself, led 12,000 black-gowned and black-tied saviors, carrying flaring torches and half-stepping in funeral march tempo to the menacing boom of a single drum, up and down the midnight streets of the old levee. The piano rolls stopped on a single surprised chord. The little red lamps blinked out together. The big drum called, "Come to Jesus or else!" And the saviors cried in one all-accusing voice, "Where's my wandering boy tonight?" "He ain't in here, Reverend," some awestruck sinner answered earnestly. And the little red lamps flickered with laughter. A piano roll lightly tinkled a jeer, and the revelry crashed like window glass with one deep purple roar, and roared on all night long. "We have struck a blow for Jesus," the Reverend announced without changing his shirt. "A church and a WCTU never growed a big town yet," old Cap Streeter contradicted him flatly. "It's still a frontier town, where the gouging and the cunning and the no-holds-barred spirit of the middle border still holds as true as rent day. For despite the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts, the missionary societies and the Bible Institutes, the Legion of Decency and Lieutenant Fulmer, Preston Bradley and the Epworth League, Emile Coué and Dwight L. Moody, there's still no true season for salvation here. Good times are hard. It's still an infidel's capital 6 days a week, and with a driving vigor and a reckless energy unmatched in the memory of man. Where only yesterday the pungent odor of stewed dog trailed across the marshes, now the million-candled billboards, weaving drunken lights in the river's depths, boast of Old Fitzgerald, VAT 69, White Horse and Four Roses. Where only yesterday the evening crow crossed only lonely tepe fires, now the slender arc lamps burn. That's teepee fires. Where only yesterday the evening crow crossed only lonely teepee fires, now the slender arc lamps burn, to reveal our back streets to the indifferent stars. And tomorrow, Chapter 2.